This is Monocle on Fashion, a show on Monocle Radio bringing you insider stories and global perspectives on the fashion industry. I'm your host, Natalie Theodosi. For today's episode, I catch up with our editorial director, Tyler Brûlé, on all things fashion. We continue some of the conversations we usually have over dinner on our recent Fashion Week highlights, the evolution of the creative director, the market shifts in the luxury industry, and the shops and new names he has been spotting on his many travels. But I also got the opportunity to go on a little bit of a walk down memory lane with Tyler, looking back at Monocle's earlier days, dissecting the magazine's founding values and its approach to covering fashion, which has always been about prioritizing quality over trends and putting the reader first. Stay tuned until the end to get a special preview of Monocle's new Paris home, located on Rue Bachaumont and set to open next week. This new space will combine a cafe, shop, and recording studio. Here, Tyler takes us behind the scenes into the making of the space and shares some of his highlights from the many made-in-France items you will soon be able to shop in store. Let's hear directly from Tyler Brûlé. Where shall we start? I think maybe we rewind straight back to the beginning, a question that I'm often asked, but I think you are much better equipped to answer. Monocle's more generally perspective on fashion, the way we cover it, the way we follow the industry, because it's not, we do cover the shows, the big luxury houses, but it's a different perspective than what you would usually find in the mainstream publications, right?
Yeah, and we have to rewind almost 20 years ago, Natalie, and thanks for having me. In our studio here in Paris. When we I guess got underway, there was, you're sort of looking back at sort of about 2005, 2007. You had this initial sort of rise of Japan, and Japan was very important. It's always been important, I think, to me as a journalist. And there was something happening in Japanese media, and I loved looking at Japanese magazines like Brutus, like Popeye, and just seeing this sort of sense of discovery that there was a focus on just that, doing the things that a good buyer in a store does, that they really go the distance, that they don't go and look for the predictable. And I wanted that to, not just to be informed by magazines, but I think when we thought about our fashion approach, that we should be introducing our readers to just, I would say, wearable garments, things that you would want to invest in. It might be an incredibly expensive merino sweater, but it was going to be a merino sweater that you would have for the rest of your life, or for many, many seasons, that you would be introduced to a garment that someone would look at and say, God, that is just the most fantastic jacket. Where is it from? And there's a real story behind it. Not that it should have bragging rights, but that it's so exquisitely cut, and you want to know the name of the designer, you want to know where it was made. So for us, it was always the sense of being wearable, not being ridiculous, a sense of timelessness. And I think always sort of built around quality and provenance. These have been probably two of the guiding components for us. And then I would always say maybe the third aspect, always just discover.
And it's interesting because I was going to ask you, has that perspective evolved over time? Has it changed? But listening to you talk, this is now, I think, what I hear when I go to market, when I go to shows. You mentioned Japan. I think the last Fashion Week, it was brands like Orally, smaller Japanese newcomers like a press that really got the attention. So do you think that the industry is catching up with this approach?
Listen, I think there's always been a vein of this, as you know. That this has always been part of the industry. There's always been those great stores in cities large and small where you have buyers who are so passionate about finding something which is right for their core customer. So I think it's always been with us, but I think now there is this recognition, partly because there's also a fatigue that you go into a mall, you go down to your local shopping street, you go to a department store, And it's rail after rail after rail of just brand. And I think it's a weird cycle because on one side, the department store wants to have sure bets. And as we know, a lot of the big brands are very difficult. They say you have to buy a minimum of this collection. You have to, show the core part of the collection. And that may not be right for that store. And I think also people are not dividing their closets into this is my Celine section and this is like my YSL rail. I mean, maybe some real sort of, fashion obsessives are, but people mix things. And I think that idea that when you go into a store and that everything is so prescribed because it is just that rail or that shop of that brand, that's complicated because also in a way, department stores used to be, I think back to what Barney's used to be, what Bergdorf Goodman used to be. And there was this real sort of sense of mix, not that it was a department store, which was just basically a mini mall of one, maison having another shop beside each other, because that's not exciting. And then you have to run from one shop to the next. Oh, you can't take those trousers with you, etc. And that's just not the way people want to consume. So I would say that we've always sort of stuck by this. But yeah, I think you do see a bit of fatigue and industry and the sector is starting to move in this direction where people, they want it's not about the sort of the storytelling, the narrative. I think people really want to invest in quality and they want to know the story behind the item that they're purchasing.
And speaking of that, the mix and the thrill of discovery, and you are always looking for new names, looking into shops, especially now here in Paris, have been visiting a lot of showrooms. So tell me, what has been catching your eye? Any highlights? Any new names?
So yeah, this is a name which has now appears on a couple of items that are in my wardrobe, and you discussed it on Monocle on Sunday. A.Presse, A.Presse, Japanese brand, and just remarkable tailoring, a great understanding of fabric, very classic in one way, but somehow also elevated. That you see the codes are all, let's say, recognizable, but then you touch the jacket and it's just the quality, and it's amazing because I have this one navy jacket and I was in a store and someone said, "That's it's a fantastic coat," and then he said, "Oh, can I just see the fabric?" And then they touched it. It's like, this could only be Japanese. He said, even in Italy, they can't do this. So that is a brand or a company which I have really a lot of respect for. We talk a lot about Orly. I don't own any Orly items. Maybe it's a bit too edgy for me personally, but I really admire and respect what they do. I think their collection is very strong. Also Japanese. The other knitwear brand, which we've been shooting for a while, and you're seeing much more of it, is Bachaumont. And again, just really outstanding knitwear, just great sweaters, an outstanding silhouette as well. So those are, at least on the men's side, companies which I think are really doing exceptional work.
And all of that will be putting it together in our upcoming style issue as well. I always rely on you to send me tips and notes from your travels, and it's coming soon, so that's quite exciting. When we look at the market from a broader perspective and what's going on there, what is your perspective on where things are going? There has been a little bit of a luxury slowdown. I think a lot of headlines in the press have exaggerated in some ways. Are we going to look at a comeback for luxury? Are things going to get better in the next year?
Yeah, I think there's going to be also, well, and maybe we already know there's multiple channels to luxury as well. We have more, I would say, sort of, middle of the road brands that try to claim a luxury territory. But I think maybe we come back to a correction, Natalie, which is, when we really talk about luxury, it's not just going to be about price. I always talk about sort of scarcity as well. That do you have to travel the distance to go and find this product? It's not just about how big is the lineup out in front of the store. Maybe the sense of true luxury is that you have to go to that town in Hokkaido in Japan, because this is where they're making that one leather bag, and they're not even doing e-com with it. You have to go and purchase it. And that we've always, I think, talked at at Monocle about this idea of the pilgrimage. And I think the pilgrimage is going to become more important. I think when we think about the scarcity of the product, that you're not going to see that bag, that coat everywhere. So I think maybe I see that the industry, and also I think how we as journalists and how consumers also purchase, I think is going to change. So that idea of rarity, scarcity really becomes a sense of what is true luxury. I think the other thing is we already start to see it. Maybe I just noticed this actually, thinking this is maybe not in the luxury sector, but at the more sort of mass premium end, Massimo Dutti as well. Actually noticing, this is just, I have not looked at their production numbers, but I was just looking at more of their tailoring, and I saw more made in Spain, more made in Portugal, when these items, you could go back 18 months ago, were mostly made in China. So I don't know if this is also, could part of it be production reassignment and reconfiguration off the back of COVID, et cetera? Maybe it took a while to move manufacturing back to Europe. But I think that sense of, if I see made in China versus, made in Spain, and also this brand is a Spanish one, am I also prepared to spend a little bit more? Do I feel a little bit better putting on that garment? So I think this idea of manufacturing partly coming back to Europe, and Europe is a very big place. I mean, we can be at the extreme west of Europe in Portugal. I think we then see also, and this is maybe the other side, is also the rise of a country like Poland. So much interesting manufacturing, great quality manufacturing coming out of Poland. And then what's going to happen then, because you've got manufacturing, and then how that also then, because of course you could be a pattern cutter working for sort of a big player who's making for many companies, but you're just technically brilliant. And I think that's also going to create a new generation of talent as well, where you really have young masters. They're not stylists. These are people who actually know how to cut a pattern. They really know how a shoulder should fold. And to me, that is also incredibly exciting, that as we see all of this, or a lot of manufacturing coming back to Europe, how that also is going to create a next generation of talent and brilliant technicians. Because I do feel, maybe this is sort of the other point of correction. We were talking recently on Monocle on Sunday about the creative director. I think a lot of creative directors, were they really designers, or are they really designers, or are they glorified buyers, or are they sort of jumped up merchants, as opposed to someone who really understands pleating, who understands knitwear gauge, all of these things. And I'm hoping that we get back to this point of someone who really understands the essence of what makes a great pair of shoes, a great pair of trousers, rather than just how it looks in the pages of a magazine. Of course, it's part of our job, or what it looks like in a shop window, as opposed to how it hangs off your shoulders.
Absolutely. And hopefully maybe that some of that star power going to the technicians, to the artisans, versus always to the one creative director who in reality works with teams of hundreds of people behind him or her. You also mentioned scarcity, which is interesting. Speaking to a lot of the designers here in Paris, including the team behind Presse, they are starting to compare fashion design a lot more to furniture design. They collect, I think, a lot of these brands and these designers have an obsession almost with mid-century furniture. They collect furniture, and they're saying that they want their clothes to resemble that approach to design versus following the seasonal calendar, changing all the time, and people to collect them in the same way they would invest and collect an amazing chair, a collectible couch. Do you find that there is a lot more crossover now between fashion and design, or then there should be even more as we move forward?
Yeah, it's essentially when I was just using the word, technicians, that there is, that is what you need when you make we're sitting on some very nice chairs from Finland here in Studio 5 here in Paris, made by Nikkari, and that takes real technical know-how, and also we're sitting on chairs that these are not going to end up in a bin. These are going to only improve with age, and probably at a certain point they'll be worth more than the purchase price, because they're collectible. They are from an outstanding business, and I think the same thing goes with fashion as well. That if the designers have selected the best materials, and it's maybe been made really with care in a small run. And I guess, we talk about sort of classics and timeless, but it is it is something, though, it still has a silhouette. I mean, of course, you could say a chair is a chair and a jacket is a jacket, but of course, there's always going to be detailing and structure and also comfort as well that is going to make something stand out. And I think I often think comfort is a word that it's a bad word in fashion because it just means sort of easy and it's voluminous, etc. But it doesn't have to be that. But it's because I always think if something is comfortable, then also it gives you a certain confidence. You feel good. And when we talk about sort of the technical, to me, it's not just we're only talking about man-made fibers, etc. I mean, far from it. I think that when we're talking about technical, it is how things are structured. When you see seamless garments right now, etc. So yes, there's a lot of technology behind it, but the final output might be, yes, it is 100% alpaca or it's 100% merino or something else. And I think that this is something when we think about sort of, the quality story that goes into items, I think this is where maybe we do see a bit more of this crossover between the industrial and industrial design that goes into the tables and chairs and the sofas that we sit on. Yeah, as much as what we want to pull on a Monday morning.
Yeah. And just to wrap, I want to go back to what you mentioned earlier about this idea of the pilgrimage. And I think people should be making pilgrimages soon to Rue Bachaumont, right? So give us a little bit of a sneak peek of what to expect in the shop, in the cafe. We're here now. It's doing the very first day of recording, which is super exciting, and doors opening soon. So why should people be coming here?
Well, here we are in the heart of the second arrondissement in Paris. Not very far from the offices of Agence France Presse. I mean, so this area has a tradition of being a media hub on this very street. This was home to various magazines. L'Officiel used to be based down the street here. You have a lot of fashion showrooms. So there's this incredible community around us, which is evolving. Sessun is just opened across the street. So Rue Bachaumont, I think, is really coming up as a street. You've got Nose, an incredible fragrance store just down the way from us. And to me, Natalie, this is it's a culmination of, I think, many things that we've learned over the last almost 2 decades of doing this, but we bring together great hospitality. We want to be able to host our readers, our listeners, our viewers, and our customers in an environment where they can come in, have a great coffee first thing in the morning. We want to deliver, oddly, for this part of Paris, it's missing a really great newsstand. So when you come in, there's going to be an incredible newsstand with all of the French press, great international press as well. Lots of just seating, lovely Nicari chairs, working with Cannes design on beautiful tables and banquettes. So it'll have, by far the most seats of any of our outlets. And then as you sort of go deeper into the space, there is our world of retail. We're going to have a special collection of French specials. And again, this sort of from the very accessible, from just, made in France Bic lighters, Monocle branded, and Bic pens, working with Tolix on just some beautiful candle holders and metal storage cases. We're working with Charvet, not Charvet the shirts, but Charvet, an amazing company who's from close to Lyon, who do just great jacquard in linen. So we're going to have amazing aprons and tote bags, but there'll be a real celebration of Made in France, along with all of our other things that are core to our collection. And if you sneak back and you sort of pull back one of the curtains, then you'll see Studio 5 here in Paris, where we're sitting right now. And we really want to use this space to be to host a conversation about fashion, to host a conversation about entrepreneurship, about industrial design and architecture and great urbanism. So I think there will be considerably more stories being told from not just obviously the streets of Paris, but really inviting people into this environment and having a great discussion.
That was Tyler Brûlé, Monocle's editorial director. And that's it from today's show. Make sure you subscribe and stay tuned. We have more big interviews and special Fashion Week briefings coming from next week. Today's episode was edited and produced by Lily Austin and Steph Chungu. I'm Natalie Theodosi. Thanks for listening.